Hi, welcome to Angel's Nook. A lot of the people that are using HTP Paint have painted countertops and put faux finishes on them. And over time, these things are pretty indestructible if you take some decent care of them. I usually clean this with Dow Scrubbing Bubbles multi-surface cleaner. You don't want anything with alcohol, any of the heavy disinfectants, because they're going to eat the surface on paint of any kind. They just do. But this has been done for 4 years. It's held up beautifully. But what is starting to happen over here on this edge here is from hands being put on here, getting up from using the commode, there is a stain that's in here. And I have cleaned it with that cleaner that I was talking about. And I use a blue, not green, never a green, a blue Scotch-Brite Scrubby that has a sponge on it, that if I've got a stain, usually that will take it right up and I'm good to go. But this is now, over time, the oils of skin have eaten into this and they've left a stain that I can't get out. So I'm going to show you how to repair just a small area on this. And then later in the video, I'm going to show you where the acetone lifted a complete section in another bathroom and how I'm going to repair that. So this is not to discourage you from using the countertop finishes. It's to show you that over time, life can happen. And yes, you can repair. It's not that the whole top of your counter has to be redone. I also, as I looked at this whole counter, realized that with all the cleaning that's been done on it, water that constantly gets here, and water is a massive erosion driller, in effect. Think about caves. They are created from water flow, droplets, drips, that finally create great chasms. That does that to a finish as well. So when I get this repaired with the paint, I'm going to put an entire final coat of the water protective, water resistant sealer by HTP over the whole thing, just so that everything has a fresh coat of that, because I can feel that some of it has worn away over time. The fact that I have this all already taped is to remind anybody this sink is not usable until that tape is removed from it. We're going to readjust cameras so you can get a really good close-up here of what I'm doing. This has been completely deglossed, and I deglossed it using the blue Scrubby, not a green Scrubby. I didn't want to do any damage to the finish that was elsewhere on this counter. Anything white is extremely hard to get clear imagery on because of the reflected light. Here in person, this is very yellowed. A yellowish brown on here, despite having been really cleaned well. And it comes out to about right out here. I'm going to be using a 1/2 inch flat art brush to apply the paint. This one happens to be one of the set from HTP. And then dry roller. Just like you're going to do brush and roll, that's exactly what we're going to do on this edge. And I'm also going to paint this edge because it also has the same stain in it. This was the Carrara marble finish, faux finish, but I chose on both of my vanities because I wanted a brighter white of it instead of the gray of the Colosseum. I chose to use Cashmere as my base color. So that's what I'm coming back with here. And it will take 2 coats of this to get this covered back in. And I'm also looking, before I started, I paid attention to what direction was I going with the faux pas when I did this originally. And you don't want a clear edge. you want to come out into feathering out with the roller, which is not what you normally do when you're rolling, but you want to smooth that out. And depending on how this dries, I may only need the one coat here to get this taken care of. But you don't know until after it's dried whether or not that's going to be the case. You can still see some of the veining underneath here, but not nearly enough to leave it in place. I want this to dry at least 6 hours because it's cashmere. And I've got a really thin coat on here. If it was a full heavy coat, I'd let it go for 12 hours. If it needs a second coat, I'll add that off camera, and then doing the same thing, feathering out into the other areas. And then we'll start the veining process on this. Anytime you've done a faux finish on a counter, make sure you have kept track of the order in which you use the layers, what colors you used, what order you stamped colors in, so that you can do a repair like this in the future. This off camera got a second coat of cashmere because there was still just a little bit of color variation showing through this. And on this one, I've got to get this edge, I've got to come across here, and I've also got to wrap down onto this. The original faux pas is designed for marble veining, and on this particular one, I've used the side of this on the other one that we're working on in this video, because it just makes sense to go ahead and do the pieces while you're working on them. And you've got the brush and the faux pas already wet with product. I don't have to put a heavy layer on there. If I were stamping the whole thing, I would fit my hand on here. But right now, I'm coming across here because I want to be able to wrap that corner. And just like the other one, this looks too dark right now. You just have to trust the process. And it's also why you don't want to skip the next step that I'm going to be doing, because this as it's on its own right now is way too harsh. Where I feathered out, I need to add back in some color. And now that needs to dry before I come back for the next one. But don't forget, like I almost did, to roll, because you want to soften that pattern. Go. And we'll let that dry and I'll come back. I have a paper towel, I have the brush back again, and I have the HTP Whitewash Antiquing Gel. Do not skip this step even when you're just doing the beginning of a countertop, because it's what makes the look go from just a stamped look pattern to a very clearly more of a natural stone look. If you skip this step, it looks very fake. And this step helps give you the natural look that you want. And when you go to take it off, which you can do with a soft cloth or a paper towel. I prefer a paper towel. Because I have more control over it. And in this case, I want a little bit more on here. And this second time, I'm just going to blot it off because I'm trying to blend it into what my previous look was. And I'm going to keep working with it here for a minute until I can see that my colors are coming back to what the rest of the countertop is. Now I'm just getting tiny amounts of the antiquing gel on the brush, and I'm using the side of it to soften this, because this has also had some wear on here. I'm barely touching, just so I'm not going to have texture on this when it dries. You've got to be patient with the process. But when we come back to this and you see the whole thing done, okay. Looking at this right now, it's matching up with the rest of the top of this counter. So I'm done with this step on this, and at this point, you need to let this dry for 48 hours before you put any water-resistant sealer on it. Let these antiquing gels take longer to dry, and I made the mistake myself of putting the sealer on too soon, reactivated the antiquing gels, and it all smeared. You don't want that to happen. Take the time and the patience to do it right. Give it the dry times it needs. The repair on this vanity on this corner has been drying for 48 hours, and I cannot impress enough on you that you must let these layers dry in this amount of time. Putting them on too fast will cause bubbling, it will cause it to peel, and it's really not a good plan. If you're going to do the painting of a countertop, the painting of a shower, allot the time that particular piece, whether it's a tub, a shower, floor, that it can have those dry times. It's really needed. This is the HTP water resistant sealer. If you haven't worked with it before, this is a brand new can. It's kind of scary when you open it up because it looks like white paint, but it's got kind of almost a gluey consistency when it gets on your fingers. So the first coat here, because this is going to need 3 coats, just as if I had done it brand new. But this area here, I'm going to put 1 coat on, and as I talked to you earlier, this whole vanity top has had a lot of wear. It's been cleaned a lot, so I'm going to put 2 coats over the entire thing. I have now taped off everywhere around this so I don't get it up on my wall. You'll have shiny spots up on your wall, and you don't want that. Even though I'm using satin, it's still got a contrast on that paint. And I have taped off fully my faucets, because getting the brush back here, getting a roller in here, you run the risk of getting that on here, and it's not fun to clean it off. So, because I'm just doing this corner to start with, I'm not using the Syntec brush. When I come back to show you doing the entire top, then I will be using the Syntec brush because it's much more efficient. These are thin coats, not heavy and thick like you put the paint on. These are thin coats. That's going to help you not have brush marks, and it's going to help you not have roller marks as well. And if you wind up, you look at a coat after you have put it on and you see brush marks, do not continue adding the sealer. Let it dry for 24 hours and then sand it with 220 grit until you get those brush marks out. The brush marks are only going to increase, just like the paint, if you keep adding the water-resistant sealer on it. We're going to move up close on this so you can see it, and we'll have this step done. It's going to be hard to see this. You need good light. It's not as important for me right here because I'm using a small space. But when you start working on the whole top, you need good light so you can see exactly where you have rolled. And yes, I rolled beyond on this because I want an even coat when I start adding the other coats. And stop. Don't keep rolling. This is a thin coat. It very quickly evens out. Stop what you're doing on it. Let it dry. This vanity is going to get 2 coats of the water-resistant sealer. The first coat has already dried on the repair area, and while that was drying, I taped everything off to protect it while I am putting the sealer on. You don't want it to get up on your wall. It's going to create shiny spots. You don't want to have to clean the gumminess of it off of your faucets. So, I'm going to show you, we're going to adjust the cameras again and show you how to work on this particular vanity to get a coat on here and how fast you need to work. You don't want to dip deeply into this because you want thin coats. And you want to work in sections because this stuff dries so super fast. It's going to feel dry to the touch, but it's just because it's forming a skin as it's drying underneath, just like the paint. It's going to take it the 30 days to fully dry underneath. But 72 hours after the last coat, it's ready to use. You don't want to work in a space more than 2 feet wide, like on a counter, because it dries too fast. Thin coats are very easy to quickly roll and not have. See, like right there, my roller would have been rolling all over the back of that faucet. Working in sections, having a good light so that you can see where your wet edge is. Is your friend. Make sure you get the inner edge with a good coat. Just avoid getting down on the sink itself. As soon as you finish rolling, check that there is no spot where that you have left brush marks. If you're having trouble getting it smoothed out as fast as I'm getting it smoothed, you are applying too much of the sealer. Got more of the sealer on my brush than I wanted, so I went ahead and made a longer run with it. A good light will also let you see that you are not skipping areas, because a clear finish is much harder to see. That's done. It'll dry for 3 hours and I'll put the last coat of sealer on it. This side is the original finish. I don't know if this is going to come in or not. It can kind of be clunky. There's no brush marks on this. Let's see if it'll come back into focus. It doesn't like going back and forth. There we go. The green tape is still in the sink as a reminder that for 72 hours this sink cannot be used. And over here, this whole quadrant in here is what was repaired. And you honestly can't tell any difference in it from the rest of the countertop. This bathroom has a cabinet that I have HTP paint in, and you can see multiple shelves. There's supplies all in here, and this is my paint sink. This particular vanity was painted and done 5 years ago. It was originally in the hall bathroom, and this survived being taken out of that bathroom, removed off the wall, all of this put back in here, legs being added to the bottom of this. So this has not had an easy life, yet it looks beautiful. And this is where I clean my paintbrushes. Normally there's paintbrushes on here, and at the end I'll show you what I do to help protect this when I'm actually using it as a work sink and I don't have it here that I need to fix it. There is a spot here in the center where that I had an exterior caulk squirt onto my hand, a big glob of it that was just eating my skin, and the only thing that was going to dissolve that caulk was acetone. So I had nothing to pour the acetone into. My hand was hurting. I'm thinking about this is caking into my ring. I know. Why didn't I have gloves on? Because I was doing a quick item that I didn't expect to have any caulk burst out of the caulk cylinder onto my hand. So normally I do have gloves on. But in the process of pouring that acetone into the sink over my hand to get that off, some came back onto this and immediately started bubbling it off. I grabbed a paper towel enough to wipe that down really quick and kept working on my hand. But that made significant damage here on the front of this part of the sink. So we're going to move the cameras and let you see close-ups of this. It's very rough to the touch. It's going to be hard to see the damages there, but it definitely did a number on it. But this is a more serious damage that requires sanding and requires more work to it. So we're going to move and let's get this set up so you can see it clearly. This is really hard. We have tried different lighting here. In person, it's very clear that this paint is pulled back, rubbled, and all the way down to the white and almost to the original brown granite that is under here in this spot. It's very rough to the touch, while the rest of this is smooth. I've got two grades of sandpaper here. I have 120 and I have 220. And I'm going to start with the 120 because I need this surface smooth. I'm also, again, before I started, looked at what angle did I use the faux pas. I'm right-handed, and I know I normally go across this way with it, and that's what I did. I can see from the pattern here. This was my own version of Carrara. This was the first vanity top I did. So it has a cashmere base on it, and then it has 3 more colors coming up through it, including some champagne, because I wanted some glimmer on it. I'm going to start with the roughest piece here, and it's not a hard sand. If you start going really hard, you're going to cause a lot of damage, and you're going to have a rim edge that's going to be hard to clean up. That's got the edge smoothed down, but this is rougher than I want it to be as a paint surface, so now I'm going to the 220. And I'll do a really light touch with it. But you can hear I am hitting the surface with it. And I went a little bit beyond where I had sanded before, so that all of this is smooth. If you've got a cutout edge of where the paint is peeled off and you're filling, you're going to see that edge because self-leveling doesn't fill, self-leveling just dries to an even thickness. So now, just like I did the other one, I'm going to put a thin coat cashmere in this spot, and rolling farther out, because I'm going to do the same thing with this vanity. Once I've got 2 coats of the sealer over this, once I've got the final faux finish on there, the 3rd coat, I will do the entire thing. And again, on this one, I've put tape around the faucet to remind people this sink is not to be used. We're going to let this one dry just like the other one, and then we'll come back and do the faux steps. A 2nd coat of cashmere was applied here and feathered out just like I showed you before. You have to roll past. You want to get some of the color beyond the border. You don't want just a spot here of exactly what was there. I did multiple layers of my own version of a Carrara with a little bit of metallic look to it in it when I did this. So the very first layer that I put on here was a very light layer of weathered wood using the original faux pas. You don't want the faux pas 2 because it's designed for granite. This is designed for marble veining. this one is going to have to dry before I do the next layer with this. Now, the first thing with here is I'm looking at the pattern on the back of this. I'm looking at the pattern I can see here, and the spot that is going to give me the best patterning for what I want is this section of this faux pas. And I'm not going to apply a heavy layer on here because I want this to be a very light stamp. And I'm going in a larger area than what I necessarily need here so that I can get what I need on here. And my first stamp, because I know my hand would have been angled like this on here holding it, is now, this looks way too dark right now. Trust the process. This is not going to look too dark when I get done with it. So this needs to dry for a little while. And I also needed to, before I stop, I need to roll across this with a dry roller to get this softened up. This has to dry. I'm going to let it dry for probably a couple of hours and come back here to it. On this one, where that the acetone lifted out and did damage, this where I have stamped with the weathered wood looks really stark, especially against this. And if you just walked up to this and looked at this counter, you would have no idea that I had originally put some weathered wood underneath. But what it does to this whole counter is that it gives you 3 layers of color in the veining, and that gives depth and more natural look to it, especially since I've added some metallic into it. So this now needs to have the whitewash put on it, but I can't put, and I'm doing this out of order of what you normally would because I'm going to be putting 2 metallics on top of it. If I put the metallics on top underneath the whitewash, you would not see the metallic at all. The whitewash would dull the sheen of the metallic. So if you're putting metallic into a countertop, you have to consider that and make sure that you have softened your dark vein lines before you put anything else on here. And again, I'm just going to blot into this, and I'm going to keep working on it till I get this weathered wood muted down to the level I need it to be. So I just need a hint of it coming through. But it's better to stamp the whole thing when you're doing layering like this than to try to just think that you know where it's going to need to be. And because I have put more on here, this will need a little bit longer to dry before I add the next step to it. And then just barely touching it just to help get any brush marks out of it. And that needs to dry. The first thing I'm going to stamp with is the champagne. And then I'm going to come on top of that with the pearl antiquing metallic. and it's to match how this surface was. The champagne put directly on it is too sharp, so I've got two shimmers going on in the top of this vanity. The pearl metallic, which is a slightly cream pearl, and then this champagne. And to make it look more like the mica deposits that happen within natural stone, I need the champagne to mute down. So it's going to go on first, the same way that I put the weathered wood on. And then rolling it to soften it. Then I'm going to take a clean paper towel and wipe that off of the top here, and another paper towel to clean the brush so that I can put pearl on here. The antiquing gels were both stirred off camera, which is really important. Because they really do like to separate, but they're highly durable once they've dried. And this will soften that white area into more of a creamy look. And again, rolling it. I've got one spot here that needs more pearl. And along the edge. This edge here. And now this needs to dry, and it'll be ready to have the water-resistant sealer on it. Again, this also needs to dry for 48 hours. I blended these two colors together because that's how I did this one, that I did the rest of the vanity top, and you want them to look like the entire thing. This sink has also been drying for 48 hours. This one is going to have the water sealer put on a little bit differently because I put an additional coat of water-resistant sealer on this about a year ago, because this vanity top has been done for 5 years. This area here where I did the repair, that's going to get 2 coats of water-resistant sealer, 3 hours apart, the thin coats, and then I'm going to put it on the entire thing, which is why I have the tape around everything. It just makes sense, and you're definitely going to get the same sheen over the entire thing. If one of your coats, your final coat, is over the entire thing, because over time the wear of water and cleaning is going to change the sheen slightly just from wear. this area from here to here has new paint on it and antiquing gels. So again, my reasoning for using the little brush is I don't need to have this thick. It's a thin coat. And it's a small area. I would not do the entire thing with this. I will come back and do, and you roll harder with the water resistant sealer than you do with the paint. And look different ways with the light across it to make sure there are no brush marks. Because if there are brush marks after it dries, the only way to fix that is to sand them before you do the next coat with 220 grit. Just sand slowly and carefully, but sand until the brush mark is gone, because that is the only way to get rid of it. But if you've rolled properly to start with and you've had light and you can see that you didn't leave any brush marks, you should not find any when it dries. Just like the other bathroom vanity, this is going to be done in sections. This is a small space, the vanity top is, but you still do not want to do it in one application and then come back and roll the whole thing. That is a guaranteed way to have brush marks and roller marks. This stuff dries super, super fast. And I'm not putting a ton of the sealer on my roller, on my brush rather. I'm just coming up this far onto it. The front edge here had the second coat of the sealer put on it off camera. But it was done exactly the same way, rolling out past the repair. Make sure if you have an under sink mount that you get the edge, this inner edge, really well. But avoid getting it all over your sink. And I am angling to look with the light on this to make sure I do not have any places that this did not get rolled out. You want to avoid rolling back into where you have already applied sealer. And you want to work really fast and make sure between every coat you wash your brush and you wash your roller, because they will gum up, because this stuff is like glue as it's drying into the surface. Don't want to forget the back here. Got up on that a little bit. And with a thin coat, it's really easy to very quickly get it smoothed out. It's really tempting to keep rolling. Please don't do it, because that's where you're going to get roller marks. And again, I'm checking, I'm letting the light, getting where I can see the light across this. You can even shine a light across it or have someone else do that for you so that you know you have gotten it completely rolled out. This one now is also completely finished, and I'll show you once I take it apart a couple of things, take the tape and all off rather, a couple of things I do to help protect this, since this is the sink that I clean all my brushes, including cleaning gel stain with mineral spirits and stuff out in this. This is the counter that had the paint completely missing in this area, at least down to the white, but underneath would have been a brown granite. If you look at the whole thing here, it looks totally uniform, and I'm going to come in close for you to see. Hopefully you can see the metallic effect that is in that. There is the repair area. And this countertop is 5 years of use. And when you come back up here to the top to look at it, it is a match for everything else on here. It just takes time and patience and remembering exactly the order in which you put stamping on this. One of the things that I do with this sink, because it's my paint sink that I clean everything else in, is I have a divided plastic tray. I'm not going to put it on here right now because this is not going back on for 72 hours. But it sits back here. I can grab soap, and if it drips down here, I don't care. I've got my hands in a mess coming in from working in the garage in the studio. I need to just go ahead and be able to pump soap and not worry about where it's going. And I keep the polish sitting in here. The plastic cup here is for helping me clean smaller bristles. And anything that's wet, I can drop into this compartment so that I'm not leaving a puddle of water on there. And so that sits there. And because this is a paint sink, my paper towel holder has a bottom on it that does not scratch if I'm pulling different things out of here. This has to dry for 72 hours, and I cannot emphasize enough, whether you're doing floors, you're doing counters, you're doing showers, give the dry times their time. This feels perfectly dry to the touch. It is not. If I put something heavier on here, even this, and I left it overnight with the weight of this, it could stick to this and cause either indentations or actually pull up the finish. Give the dry time. The base coat that you put on of whatever faux finish you're doing, or just painting in a shower or a tub, needs 48 hours after the last coat to dry. Put your faux finish on, let that dry 48 hours, then put your 3 coats of finish on and let it dry 72 hours. It is worth every second of that dry time to have durability. This counter has been done for 5 years and it gets a workout. Normally there are brushes all over this, there's paint cans sitting here, there's stuff everywhere because I don't clean it up every single day when I'm working and painting. It's just not worth it to me. And usually those are things that I'm going to grab quickly again the next day with what I'm working on. This is a highly durable surface if you treat it right. Anything like things like acetone, which is the same thing as fingernail polish remover, it's going to take it off. Anything with alcohol, a lot of your shaving creams, Dawn Power Wash will strip it right off because of the alcohol in it. So you have to think about what you're going to use as your cleaners and how to take care of this. If you have little ones that don't, then you've got a painted counter for them, put something underneath your soap dish so that their dribbles, you don't have to worry about, did the soap glue the container down? Because it will, if there's soap that pools underneath a soap dispenser or shampoo in your shower, it will glue it to the paint and it will lift it up when you try to get it off. So you need, if you're doing tubs and all, you need some kind of shelf that you can put those items on, or one of the corner pole bars that has shelves on it, so that you're not setting bars of soap, shampoo containers, conditioner will do it too, will stick to it and come off. So it's just some basic care, but it's worth it to have a beautiful countertop when you can't afford to replace your countertops, rather than having an ugly one, which what this was before was really ugly. So that's some of the things I want you to think about, and additionally keeping that bright light across the surface so you can see that you've rolled everything out. If you find brush marks after the coat is dried, stop, sand it smooth, wipe it off with damp paper towels, put your next coat on there. You saw how small sections I worked on. If I'm working on a floor, I will do no more than 2 12, 14-inch tiles at a time with the sealer. If I'm working on a countertop that's a longer countertop, I'm only going to work in a 1 to 2 foot section, working really quickly, rolling and being done, and it's thin coats. Too thick a coats will give you brush marks that are hard to get out. Too thin a coat will give you bad roller marks. So with that in mind, hopefully this will help encourage you that if you've got a place where there's a stain, you saw on the other vanity how to deal with that. If you've got damage that's all the way through the finish, that's lifted some of the finish, you're going to have to do some sanding and go gently with it. Go gently when you are brushing out, when you're sanding out brush marks too. That's something, that's the kind of sanding you have to do by hand. If you do a power sander on it, you're going to rip right through it, just like burning through veneer. I hope this has been helpful for you. Thanks for being here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and we'll see you next time.